Good morning. I will call our September meeting of Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority to order. We're going to start off the meeting with a streetcar presentation by Doug Smith, kind of an update on where we are and where we're going. And, so, Doug, if you would, please.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. All right, so we have sort of a three-part presentation today. First, a general update on all the components of the project, and there is a lot of activity right now. Then we have a short flyover video of the alignment, just sort of as a final review of what we're getting ready to take to construction. And then finally, I have some details on the main line that we just actually got to bid. We just got that through City Council on Tuesday. So we are out to bid on the main line construction now. I will go pretty quickly through this material because it could be lengthy otherwise. If you want to ask a question, feel free to interrupt me, or we'll take questions at the end. So let me know if I'm going too fast, and be happy to answer anything. So let's go ahead and get started. See if I can get my mouse to advance there. So we'll go through the vehicles, the maintenance facility, the main line, tell you a little bit about the main line bid documents, and then finally an update on the track work, which is also just went through City Council. So first on vehicles. So right now we're in a very heavy submittal review process. We finalized our battery model to confirm the on and off wire components of the project, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Our truck design, there's a special truck that we're providing on these vehicles. You can see a picture of them there on the slide. We're doing a resilient mount, which is for Brookville. That's a new feature, and it will help with wear and tear on the motors and wheels. So we're getting that feature. We have completed design review, and we've approved that. So Brookville's moving forward with the resilient mount. And in terms of milestones, we have been through the mock-up review in Dallas back in June, and actually now next week we're going up to Brookville. Several of us are going up for the final design review in Brookville. And that would then initiate the production process. So they'd be ordering doors and windows and brakes and some of the long lead components for the vehicles. So that all then goes into some of the milestones you can see on the slide, leading to a car being completed in March and ready for on-site testing at Brookville. And then in the May to June time frame, we're looking at the first delivery of car number 1, and then 1 per month after that. Since that is coming in before our maintenance facility is ready, we have identified a location where we can store the vehicles, and we're looking at cover options for some kind of temporary facility to put over the vehicles, keep them out of the weather and that kind of thing. So all going well there. In terms of maintenance facility construction, that has been awarded. And Wind Construction is doing that. They've started working at the site down at 7th and Hudson. So we're getting into the early stages of the site work there, and we anticipate a completion in about mid-August of 17. So the mainline update, I'll tell you about the rail and track work, the pre-qualification of the mainline installers and the electrical systems, private utilities, update on safety plans, adjacent projects, and so on. So we have pre-purchased the rail and the track work. Now the track work is like the switches that we put at the intersections, and where the routes converge, and so the turnouts. On the straight rail, our supplier there is Worth Rail, and we have 2 deliveries come from Houston, about 50 total truckloads. And the deliveries will be split. We have staging areas identified in the north, which is up between 14th and 16th off of Broadway, and then also in the south end at Southwest 10th Street and Robinson. And so we have rolling number 1. Has been done in Austria. It's on a ship as we speak, and we're expecting it to come into the port of Houston possibly tomorrow. So anyway, it's an exciting time for the rail to start coming in, and we're expecting about 21 truckloads of rail to arrive sometime this next week, maybe Wednesday or Thursday. Actually, Michael and I were just talking about getting some pictures of that as our first load of rail starts coming in. But we would be delivering that on Southwest 10th Street, so starting to see some activity there. And then we have a second rolling that would be coming in. The track work wouldn't be coming until around March of 17, and we just put through an amendment which gets all of our quantities trued up for the adjustments we did for the convention center route and so on. So that's all set up. The north staging area, which is, we're working out an agreement for DeLisi for using this strip next to the BNSF right-of-way. But on the north end there, off of 16th Street, that's where our rail piles would go. Then you can see the cross-hatched rectangular area. That's where they would set up a welding line, and then they would make these 300 to 400 foot long strips of continuous welded rail. So they do a high-quality weld right there in the yard, and then you can see that long bar there to the south end where those 300 to 400 strips 400-foot strips would be stored, and then when they're ready to put it in the street, they drag it out on 14th Street, down Broadway, and on into where their construction zone is. We can also store our track work there, put job trailers, so that's going to be a very handy area for us. We have pre-qualified on our main line. There are 4 general contractors or joint ventures that are eligible to bid on this, and there are 4 electrical system subcontractors which will have to work for the mainline contractors. These are all very highly qualified national firms that have done this many times, and so we think this is going to be a big advantage to our bid process to have these bidders that have done these systems many times over. So we're excited that we've got that process done, and it gives us a little more confidence in our bid process.
So will there be some discussion of awarding pieces to each one of them, or is it more likely that one firm will get the full job?
One firm will get everything.
Okay.
It is one big bid package,
okay. And
that's what I'll be describing here in a little bit. But yeah, it's whoever wins it all. So yeah, there's no work sharing in it. But I want to emphasize there is one embedded rail installer that'll be the general contractor, and then one of the electrical systems. So we will have basically 2 of those 8 will be involved. On the private utility side, there's a long list there of things that are going on. OG&E has a lot of activity. We coordinate with them monthly. There's things that they need to get out of our way in terms of there's about 5 underground vaults that they need to rebuild and move. And they may not actually do that until we actually start working in the streets, and they'll come into the same street. They want to do it about the same time, so we have the same traffic control. There's overhead wires that they need to get out of the way. There's street lights that they need to take down so that we can put up our overhead contact system poles. And so they're ready for us. They know what our schedule is, and so we're optimistic that our coordination with OG&E has gone well. AT&T similar, a couple of vaults that they need to rebuild. Oklahoma Natural Gas is looking at their where we're crossing them and any work that they need to do, such as lowering their lines or putting some special insulation in if they want to. Cox needs to get some overhead things out of the way, and in some cases they may actually be attaching to the back of our poles on insulators so that they don't have to completely relocate and move over one of their overhead wires. And then there's many other communications companies that we coordinated with that will probably be boring under the street. So there's a lot of activity on the safety side, and we have a safety and security management plan, which we have now signed off. It's a joint effort of MAPS and Embark and Jacobs all working together on developing these plans. So those are signed. That there's a certification plan, which lists things like the certifiable elements list, and this is basically how we check off things. Is we look at the design and say, did we include everything, all the safety measures we need in there? And then as we're constructing, has that safety element been taken care of? So those are all listed in that certification plan. And there's also a program plan which lists how everything kind of fits together, and that's been drafted. That's more of an Embark focus along with the operator. And then we just had a meeting with ODOT Safety and Security Oversight Office. They're bringing some new people into the project, and they want to be able to have everything ready to go so that when FTA gets involved, which we have a meeting with them, Jason has that set up here, I think it's in September later on, but anyway, we had a kickoff meeting with them. It was a very positive meeting. ODOT's excited about the project. They want to work with Embark and MAPS and everyone to make sure that everyone's in alignment with the safety measures and the protocols. So the safety process is really going well, and we feel like we're ahead of it. There's lots of adjacent projects. I won't get into this in a lot of detail, but EK Gaylord is ongoing. That rail installation will be in the spring. The Hudson Road project, as you know, that area is all torn up down there, so that's ongoing. They will be leaving the median lane. They'll be leaving a notch in there filled with asphalt, so our streetcar contractor can just easily dig that out and lay the track down the middle lane. The boulevard, we've coordinated with their landscaping and their lighting, and the ODOT project, so that when our streetcar goes in, we're coordinated with that project, and then the boulevard project as well. So all of those we're coordinating with all those projects. We've told our mainline contractor what the schedule is for those things and how they need to tie together. I also mentioned that ADG keeps a list of all the special events and all the contacts that Kristen has been developing over the last year or so. And those are all included in our bid documents. So they know all the events, they know when all the NBA games are, so that they can try to work around everything. And that's a lot of information for them. Upcoming meetings, the first 3 meetings there have already happened, so the information I'm giving you now has been through the subcommittee, the Citizens Advisory Board. We had a Planning Commission meeting. City Council just approved all this last Tuesday. Here we are today on the 2nd and the 15th. Our mainline bidders will come in for a mandatory pre-bid meeting. So with that, I'll let Kristen talk to you for a couple minutes and give you an update on our outreach program.
Good morning. My name is Kristen Wilson, and I'm with ADG, and we do all of the program management for all the MAPS projects. So I am specifically on the streetcar project. My job is to do all of the construction communications. So that means walking the route since last year and meeting we're up to 516 business owners and property owners to tell them that we're coming. Literally, it's because we don't want any surprises. My job is to be super realistic with all of my communication in regards to timeline, construction, that sort of thing. So MAPS does the construction, and then Embark will be doing the operation side of the streetcar. And so it's not just this black and white, like hand the baton off to Embark when we're done. There's a large overlap in things like safety messages that we're going to get together and talk about. I've already been working with Michael on things like branding, creating the streetcar route map for the public to use eventually. Things like, how to parallel park when the streetcar is coming. These are all things that we have to start thinking about now before it actually starts operating. It's beneficial for me to be one person doing this because I am one point of contact, so I can provide a consistent information to everybody. So if anybody has any questions about any of the construction, it's me. My cell phone number is passed out all the time. They can call, they can email, whatever they need. Like I said, there are 516 business owners and property owners along the route. And as of today, I've talked to 88% of the contact list. There are also 49 events that could be affected by streetcar construction. And I've reached out to all of them, and I've talked to and confirmed with 48 of them and gotten additional dates for 2017 and 2018. Should we have to reroute a 5K or maybe a parade, just so they know it's coming, again, so there are no surprises. I've also had individual meetings with Jacobs and Jesse with the streetcar project to sit down with business owners and property owners if they feel like, maybe their location will be specifically impacted, things like that. And then I've also been attending the district association meetings, traffic management, and city services. So do you all have any questions? Okay, thank you.
So that's the general update. Any questions in general before I get into the details of the main line? Moving on. So this was the bid authorization package that we presented to City Council. And one thing I would point out, the photo that you see on the left is typical. That's a typical track slab construction. So the street gets opened up, we put some things under the 12-inch slab, such as electrical conduits, utility relocations, those kinds of things. And then we start filling that in. We pour concrete. I've got some more details on that. And on the right, you have a typical overhead contact system where we have a cantilever pole, the catenary wire, and so on. So those are the two main components of the mainline construction. So on the civil part of it, I will show you a quick route review, and I'll give you detail on the track slab and rails, a little more detail on utilities, go through the electrical systems, and a little detail on the stop platforms. So we're going to tab over to the flyover video, and we're going to start at the maintenance facility at 7th and Hudson. This is what I mentioned earlier. We have started construction here, and if we're driving a streetcar, we would be pulling into Hudson, going into the middle lane. We can either be on or off wire at this point because it's optional as to what, it kind of depends if our batteries need to top off or anything, or if we may want to use this section to test the overhead wire. And we actually have the overhead contact system as a bid alternate because we could actually operate the project without having the overhead wires in Hudson. So anyway, that's a bid alternate. But once we get to the intersection with 3rd Street or the new Oklahoma City Boulevard, we're now entering revenue service. And you see how we have the route coming in from the east there and coming into Hudson. This is where we move over into the right lane. We have special controls at that intersection where we get a transit-only phase where the cars can move through there. And so this is where, and this is definitely off-wire, where we're using our batteries on this section of the alignment. So we're going to continue north in the right lane of Hudson and head it past along Hudson, and then we get to the stop number 6, which is right there at the corner of Mary Gardens and Sheridan. And this is where we would pick up passengers that might be using the gardens or that area. And it's also an area where the driver has to make a decision. That are they going to go to Midtown on the Midtown route, or are they going to circle back into Bricktown for the Bricktown circulator? So the operational plan includes most times running 4 trains on the Midtown loop and running 1 train on the Bricktown. So basically, 1 out of every 5 trains will be making the right turn, and the other 4 will be going straight here, going north on Hudson. For this purposes, we're going to continue north on Hudson. So we're in the right lane, and then we come to the library. There at stop number 7. We're still off wire. We're rebuilding the plaza out here in front of the library. This will pick up patrons from this part of the city, including where we're sitting here, City Hall and city offices and so on. And then we continue on north from stop number 7 and past the county garages there. And then we come and we make the turn right on 4th Street, stop number 8. And this is an important stop in that we're kitty corner from the bus transit facility. So people that are getting off buses want to get on a streetcar, this is where they would hop on. We also have to go on wire here because as we turn right on 4th, we're going up the hill, and that's basically the limit of our batteries. And so we have to go on wire here and start charging. So we turn right on 4th, head up the hill. Then we get to an important intersection of 4th and Robinson. And one of the things that's unique here is that stop number 9 is what we call a far side stop. All other stops are what we call near side, which means the streetcar always stops before it gets into the intersection. And we felt that was an important design feature because in places where there's not a double lane and there's no way to pass a streetcar, and when traffic stacks up behind the streetcar for that 20 seconds or so when they're unloading or loading, that way when it's near side, there's no way for the traffic to back up into the intersection and anyone to get panicky about being stuck in the intersection. At stop number 9, we're on the far side, and it's because of the federal buildings here, and they didn't want that stop in that area in front of that federal facility. So what we have done is we'll have special provisions there that allows the intersection to clear out when the streetcar is coming into that stop. And so we're using train-to-wayside controls and sensors in the track to be able to avoid that. So that's how stop number 9 works. I also mentioned that 4th Street is a major planned bike facility for the city. And so we have to coordinate our bike lane. We never have a bike lane that's on top of the lane that the streetcar rails run in because it's hazardous for the bikes. So we've always worked out wherever we are in the design, whenever there's a defined, either a sharrow that's in a lane or a dedicated bike path, that's never on top of streetcar rails. So on stop number 9, what we have to do is run that bike path around behind the platform, expanded the sidewalk area a little bit where they can drive behind the platform and on back into 4th Street. So that's all been worked out. Let's continue on 4th Street, and we're going to turn left into Broadway. Now, all these intersections where we have these big sweeping left turns, we always turn from right lane to right lane. So it's a big sweep across, and the only way to do that is to have all the cars stop. So we have a transit-only phase on all these signals where we make the left turns. We have a special signal for the vehicle at the intersection where it's a horizontal vertical bar where it signals the streetcar driver that it's all red and they're safe to proceed on their big left turn. So that's how that will work. Of course, we have those trained away side controls that tells the signal there's a streetcar there and it needs to do something special. So now we're going north on Broadway, stop number 10. We continue on north. We're putting a new traffic signal at 8th, right there at stop 11. So again, near side stop. So this is going to serve all the automobile alley businesses and so on. We're in the right lane. We're changing the parking from angle parking to parallel parking for safety reasons. And then we continue on north all the way up to 11th where we make our turn west. Now, another new signal goes into this intersection for this left turn. And then the stop number 12 will be the last stop there along Broadway. We continue west on 11th Street. We're doing a modification to the street right here and adding a new signal as well to be able to allow that part of 11th Street to flow on through. We continue west on 11th, past stop number 13. There are some stop signs in here which we worked out with Public Works. And then we come to Dewey. So Dewey is a really important feature. That is basically where our Midtown loop, where the drivers will catch up on their schedule. We've worked it out with the 4 trains in 10-minute headways. We've measured times. We've put in our traffic control measures where we think we can make the loop in 35 minutes. And we need to be able to stay on schedule. We need to be at a 40-minute loop time. So they have about 5 minutes here to dwell, to catch up. This is on wire, so they can finish charging batteries. And this is also a place where the operators can take a break. Also, if Embark needs to switch drivers, this is a great place to do it. They can run a driver up there, and if they need to switch out, they just have them ready to go. So one jumps off, the other one jumps on, kind of thing. And it's also, we've worked out restroom facilities with the hospital, so all that's available, and it's a transit-only lane, so there's no risk of backing up traffic or anything. So stop 14 is a very important part of the operation. Then we continue south on Dewey, turn onto 10th Street, and now we're heading east through the roundabout. There's a couple of stops in here. Nothing really major to point out here until we get over to Robinson, and then south on Robinson, and down to the law school. Let's stop there at stop number 17. This is where we're going to be able to drop the pantograph and go off wire. And it's an important feature for the memorial and so on that we're able to go to not hang wire in front of the memorial gate. That was a real big benefit to them for the project. So we'll continue on south on Robinson. You can see the memorial gate there. And now we're back to the intersection with 4th Street. And one thing I'll mention here is this is an opportunity for passengers to transfer. So let's say they got on over at the 4th Street Transit facility and they really wanted to go on a southbound train, but they could actually get off at stop 9, walk over to stop 18, catch a southbound, and then go on down to Bricktown. So these twin stops work together operationally very well. So now we continue on south on Robinson through the buildings here, small, very minor parking modifications in this area, and then we get to the point where we join in with the route coming across in Sheridan and then making the big left turn over into stop number 20. Now, that is currently an offloading area for the Cox Center, and we are rebuilding that. That's going to be a streetcar stop now, and that's going to change. We've worked all that out with Public Works and Cox in terms of how that's going to work. So we go past stop number 20. Again, we are off wire. And then we come up to the E.K. Gaylord intersection. Now, stop number 23 is being built as part of that E.K. Gaylord Public Works project. And you might recall that there was some Tiger Grant funding that was taken advantage of, so Public Works is putting this section of rail in between Sheridan and Reno, and it's not part of our current operation. However, it could be a turnback in the event of something wrong in Bricktown, a wreck or something like that. So, so that's an option to us, and there will be a power-operated switch at that intersection to where the driver can select to turn right here, and stop 23 would not be active. There won't be a shelter on it. There won't be any kind of marker pylon. So it's just for future expansion of the operation. So normally they would go straight, and when they got to stop 21, after they get into the railroad, this is where they have to go back on wire to get the batteries to recover again. So they'd raise the pantograph at stop 21. They always stop there and go back on wire. So we're going to circulate around through Bricktown, go through stop 22, which serves the ballpark. We're going to turn right on Joe Carter, and so we have that stop back there. There's a traction power substation. I'll mention those more in a minute. And then right here, where we turn right onto Reno, let's stop there for a second. So we have the opportunity we created a transit-only lane there on Joe Carter. So we have the opportunity to make an unrestricted right turn. So again, this has to do with our route times and how much time we have to wait at intersections. We have an opportunity for sort of a right turn only there for the streetcar, so they don't have to wait very long to turn onto Reno. And so again, a good feature there. We come on, we're going west on Reno. We go through stop number 2, serving the ballpark. Stop number 3, again, they have the pantograph has to go back down to go into the railroad, and now we're back off wire to go through the downtown section. So we'll go through stop number 3 under the underpass, again, intersection with E.K. Gaylord, with that coming back in. Stop number 4, serving the Chesapeake Arena. And then we make the left turn onto Robinson, and we're heading down towards our new Park Convention Center site, stop 5. About halfway there, right around 2nd Street, we do go off-road into a transit-only lane and go through stop 5. Stop 5 will have a double track, so since we have both the Bricktown Loop and the Midtown Loop running on this route, it's real important that we have basically a passing lane there for the streetcars. Also, the Bricktown train will occasionally have to stop and charge there because it doesn't recover enough charge in the on-wire in Bricktown to be able to make a sustainable loop in that 15 minutes. So occasionally they will have to stop at stop number 5, and we don't want that stop train to be in the way of the Midtown trains because, there's 1 versus 4. So the other 4 trains will be able to take the passing lane because they don't need to charge here, and they'll just keep circulating on through. So stop number 5 is also important from the standpoint of it's going to serve that new convention center and hotel, and then the new Map Street Park. So a lot of activity there at stop 5, and it will be to the north of the boulevard. We will not be in traffic for any of this. So we continue west to the north side of the new boulevard, and then we meet back in with Hudson. This is where we started our revenue service. Now, we are planning to put in a Y at this intersection. So the driver, if they want to go out of service and head back into the maintenance facility, they can turn left and go on down the median lane of Hudson. And if they're staying in service, they turn right and go right up Hudson. So let's briefly show you as we go up Hudson. Again, now we'll pretend we're the Bricktown Loop. We'll take the right turn there onto Sheridan, and we're going to continue east and stop right there. Sorry we lost the video, but that's fine. So at that point, we join back in at Sheridan, and we can stop there. You get the general idea of, there we are. One thing I want to point out there is we were in the left lane going down Sheridan, and that was to preserve the bike facility in the right lane. We don't have a stop along there, so we were able to give a little bit of space away from the Myriad Gardens right there. Continue on. So, any questions about the alignment? That's where we're getting ready to build. Okay, so we'll go on back over to our slides and give you a little bit more detail on the design of the main line. This is just a quick section of the track slab. It has reinforced rebar in it. It's 12 inches thick. It's about 8 feet wide. It can span a trench of about 10 feet so that future utilities can be built under it. And it has an insulating boot around the rail, which is an important feature for stray current. And like Oklahoma Natural Gas, any interference with their gas lines, we're eliminating as much of that as we possibly can. On the road grading, we've tried to fit the track slab into the road to minimize the amount of road work to the sides of the track slab to make it fit into the crowns of the road. And that's the point there. This is what the construction looks like. As I mentioned, we're going to create this trench in the street. We're going to fill in some things underneath it. We're going to bring those continuously welded strings of rail in and set them in the streets and put rebar around them, and then we're going to pour concrete around that to embed it. And that's going to take a few weeks in any given section of the street. They'll march through the city in probably 2 to 3 block segments, and you'll see probably 1 or 2 work crews doing that all through, probably starting in January and going all through next year. Utilities, we've moved the water lines and sewer lines out from under the track slab as much as practical. In some cases, we've had to leave a sewer line or 2 under the track slab because there wasn't any room to move it to. We looked at the condition of the sewer line and found that it was in pretty good shape. So we worked out with water utilities to the best of our abilities where we could move them or where we need to keep them. Sometimes the manholes end up in between the rails. And I think this is important for Embark to understand, is that there are times when there's going to be shutdowns required to enter these manholes. So there'll be an operational agreement with water utilities. There'll be an agreement with OG&E to where they need to enter these facilities. What's going to happen with the trains? Embark, the beauty of Embark being having buses and streetcars is that they can start a bus bridge for temporary service for the streetcar patrons. And the stop platforms double for a bus loading and unloading. So that can all work together. This is the final map. I described this in the walkthrough, but the red areas are where we're ending up on wire. The blue areas are off wire. The green area is the bid option that I described earlier, where we'll see how our bids come in, whether we put the wires there or not. The battery model, working with Brookville, this has all been confirmed. They've worked with their battery supplier, and so this all ties together with where we're putting wire and how we expect the batteries to work. These are some typical slides showing the overhead contact system, what they look like when we turn a corner, the cantilever poles, and so on. Now, some people ask, well, how does the power really fed to the streetcar? So we put together a little slide showing we have a substation that rectifies the voltage from OG&E to 750 volts DC. It comes in underground into a feeder pole, and we go up the pole and out on the cantilever arm to the hot wire. The hot wire is what we call the catenary wire, and that's what the streetcar pantograph contacts. That's what they run on when they're running on wire, powering motors, and charging the batteries. So the voltage goes into the traction motors, and the current then cycles on into the ground rail, which is in the street. There's a residual voltage after it gets through the motors just for the return to ground, and that's that 30 volts DC residual. That is a safe voltage. We've never had any problem with anyone getting shocked or having any problem with it. So the 30 volts is, you can imagine about 4 9-volt batteries tied together. It's about all it amounts to. And so anyway, that is there, and then that returns back to the traction power substation to complete the loop. So that's basically how the electricity works. Typical corner, you can see what the wires look like there. We're putting up some new poles to handle those span wires, support wires, or go around those corners. And in many cases, we're using a street light pole to hold that wire now. One thing Public Works is very concerned about is having too much pole clutter resulting from this project. And so there's about 100 locations where we're having OG&E take down street lights, and we're putting up our catenary pole, and then we're going to put a street light back on it and maintain that light ourselves. So it's going to be very minimal additional poles. We minimize as much as possible, I'll say. Here's another example of what these span wires look like. Now this is like on Hudson, south of the boulevard. We span from side to side, and then we hang that catenary wire down the middle. So there's not enough room to reach it with a cantilever pole from one side. That's an example of what South Hudson would look like. Here's the traction car substation. We've done our best to locate these along alleyways. We're not screening them because they're pretty well out of the visibility. It's gone through DDRC. They've all been approved, and so we have these sites ready to go. And these green rectangles, these are not to scale, just to kind of give you an idea of where they're located. But number 1 and number 5 serve Bricktown. There is redundancy built into the system, so if we lose one, we still have the ability to keep things running in Bricktown. And we also confirmed with our power modeling that we can also stack several trains in Bricktown without having a problem, and that's really good for special events such as a basketball game getting out. If we need to have a bunch of trains ready to go to start picking people up there at Chesapeake, we can actually have those trains ready to go in Bricktown and without a problem with our electrical system. Then in Midtown, we have traction power substations 2, 3, and 4. Again, there's some redundancy included in that system as well. Number 6 is down at the maintenance facility, and it also powers the recharge facility at stop number 5. This is a typical stop design. We bring the curb out. If there's a parking lane, we take up a few parking spaces. You can see the tactile strip. There's also a marker strip for the driver to see a row of tiles. When they pull up, they can see exactly where they need to stop so the doors line up. The doors are in the center section of the vehicle, and those 2 sets of doors will have the level boarding, the 14-inch high curb. And then as you come to the front and back parts of the platform, you drop down to a lower, more standard curb height, and that's how we accommodate the buses if they need to stop and use that platform. So, again, it is level boarding. People in wheelchairs or anything like that will be able to roll on, roll off. And of course, it's very easy to walk on and walk off. Typical shelter. This is on the left is a detail, and on the right is a typical rendering from the vendor that we're proposing. We'll have a lit marker right in the middle of it that says what the stop is, and then to the left of that, it'll show you what the next stop is down the line. Another feature, which I don't have a picture of, but is in final design detail, is a marker pylon, which goes with the platform. And so this is something that Embark's been working on, is a very stylish marker pylon that's very identifiable for all 22 stops. And we'll also have a message board in it, which will tell you when the next train is and any other information that wants to be sent to that. So it'll be have LED lighting, and so that's being designed, and we're going to include it in addendum number 1 in our bid documents. So, and that is almost ready to go. We have a special cover at stop number 5. This is down by the convention center. Just a quick rendering of what that looks like. And then we have a windbreak going in. And the rendering's a little off. We ended up with more of a straight glass panel in the middle of the stop. And we were just working out the final design on that when we made this rendering. So our cost estimate of $57.1 million is right at the budget that we have. We have some contingency built into that, about 10% contingency for anything that we might have missed, the contractors see that we don't see. We also have deductive alternates, and which add up to about $2.4 million in the event that we're much lower with our estimate than what we actually get. We have opportunity to start pulling some things out of the bid award to match budget. And the other thing that gives us confidence in this estimate is, as I mentioned, the pre-qualified contractors, having contractors that know what they're bidding on and understand how much things really cost. So lastly, the schedule. Here we are, August 31 this week. We did, we are in fact out to bid, September 15th pre-bid. And I won't read all those dates off to you, but you can get an idea of how things go to get us started in construction in November. And then there's some intermediate milestones. And then by March of 18, we're hoping to have the Bricktown Loop complete, where we can start doing some testing. Midtown Loop in August, and then opening day in November of 2018 is our best projection at this point. So that was pretty fast. There was a lot of details hiding in there, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, it was a good presentation, so bring us all up to date.
Yeah, my only question is, can we get a copy of this presentation?
I don't know why not.
Okay.
Right, Jason?
It'll be really helpful for us, like answering questions about dates and that sort of thing.
We have that.
Okay, great.
We'll send it to the trustees. And
Great.
we also, you'll notice a little wallet card we passed out with some quick facts
Yeah,
about the
I'm going to need a
streetcar.
micro
that's okay.
reader to go with that. Really great presentation.
So-
Thank you.
It made this real to me in a way that nothing else has so far. I mean, it's all been there, but this is just really good. Thank you.
Thank you. We're excited to see it start in construction, so.
All right, Doug, any other questions? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good. Citizens to be heard. I think we have one. He's pretty long-winded, too. He used to be, so.
I promise to keep it short.
Okay.
I'm Rick Kane. Address is 1504 Breckenridge Drive, Edmond, 73013. I came here this morning to congratulate you and the Embark staff and the City of Oklahoma City for Embark being selected as the top transit agency in the nation for 2016 for those systems who provide less than 4 million passenger trips a year. For the 3 years just prior to my retirement, I actually served on the selection committee. So I have firsthand knowledge of just how tough it is, the level of competition and the pride that you should have in making and receiving this award. I think for the information, though, for those who aren't familiar with how this award is actually done or carried out, there are 2 parts to it. The first part is a quantitative part, and the selection committee gathers information, like the number of buses and the number of revenue hours and passenger miles and number of employees, and they go through a very detailed analysis, including such things as operating costs all the way down to number of road calls that you have in a year. And they rank every transit agency based on those quantitative criteria. Then there's a second component part, which we call the qualitative part. And in qualitative issues, you have things like service enhancements, which would be in Embark's situation where they expanded the service hours or where you had increases in frequency. They will also take a look at technology improvements that you've made, like Wi-Fi on the buses and GPS and the capabilities that GPS provides both in managing the system and also in passenger information systems that's there. They're very concerned about safety, so they want to see and understand your safety program, your financial management, customer relations, community relations. These are all elements that go into the qualitative portion. But I think one piece that's missed is telling the story. Recognize that most people who sit on the selection committee know very little about the various transit agencies. And so what they know is what they see and what's presented before them. So it's not just what you've been able to accomplish over this 3-year period, but it's also the fact the way you told the story and shared that information with the selection committee. So again, I'm here to say congratulations to all and to also thank you for your hard work and the financial support that was necessary in making Embark turn out to be the best of the best for 2016.
All right, Rick, thank you.
I'd just like to comment, Mr. Chairman, that this award is it's wonderful, it's amazing, and we should be very proud of it. But the foundation that Rick laid for this agency in the past has made the difference in us being able to have these accomplishments. If there had not been such strong management and leadership in the agency, we would not have been able to build on that. The financial resources that were put into it by the City Council would not have made such a big difference if we did not have that strong foundation. So thank you, Rick, for your part in this, too.
You trained us well. Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just add to Laura's comments. I agree. You know, whenever somebody receives an award or recognition, sometimes it's thought that that achievement just occurred overnight, but this is a long process, and Rick was certainly very instrumental in shaping the views of the citizens, of the council, and of the staff here, and certainly should be a part of this celebration process, and we certainly appreciate all of your efforts, Rick, and we're extremely pleased with Jason. He's done a tremendous job, but again, these things just don't happen overnight, even though they sometimes look like, all these improvements just took place, but it's a very long process, and we're just now finally, receiving the recognition. And I'll say this, I think we've got a lot of ways to grow and improve upon the service compared to where we are, but it's certainly a very nice system, I think, especially compared to just 5-10 years ago. So, thank you.
David? Yes. I mean, just consider where we're going to be in 18 when the streetcar's up and running to the transportation needs of the citizens and what we're here to provide. I think it's going to be a great day. So I thank everyone. All right. Do I hear approve of our minutes of our August board meeting?
So moved.
All in favor? Okay. Consent docket, only 4 items on the consent docket. Any of them, any of the trustees would like a comment on? If not, I would have a motion to approve our consent docket. All in favor? Opposed? Items for individual consideration, approval of a purchase of a payment card industry software upgrade to our SKIDATA parking access revenue control system, and I think Corey's going to make a brief presentation on this.
Good morning, everybody. Just like software that we use every day, example Windows, software needs updating as improvements are found. Payment card industry standards is a constantly moving target. We have the opportunity to update our SKIDATA software across the system that will improve our PCI compliance. In addition to that, also want to improve our data retention, extend the amount of time we retain data and the data that we retain. In order to do that, additional software adjustments would need to be made, along with giving us the ability to export that raw data off of the revenue control system onto the city's network for safekeeping. One, to back up the system, and then two, to have that data available for future references. All of that hardware and minimal hardware, mostly software. We would also move the brains of the system from the Santa Fe garage to the Arts District garage. The reason for that is the Arts District garage has a brand new fancy power generator that can keep the brains working should we receive a power outage. Right now, example, if the Santa Fe garage lost power, all of our other garages would have limited access. Keeping it at the Arts District garage, we'd have a brief hiccup, generator would come on, the system would reboot, and the other garages would function as they do normally. Total cost is estimated to be at just over $65,000 for those improvements. Is there any questions?
All right. Any questions? All right, Corey, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve item A?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? B is approval of a request for consultant services to perform a benefit cost analysis for a high-capacity transit project and authorize the administrator to advertise and release an RFP. So, Jason, you might give us a little update on that.
Yeah, this is, again, request for authorization to issue an RFP for a benefit cost analysis. And that high-capacity transit project that is mentioned is actually a continuation of the study we were doing about this time last year when we looked at the Northwest Multimodal Corridor Concept Plan. If you'll recall, that was the corridor originating in downtown, heading north on Classen to the Northwest Expressway on out to Meridian. And the purpose of that study was basically to look at that corridor and say, we have this corridor that's dominated by automobile traffic. Is there a way to integrate an enhanced transit, namely a bus rapid transit type system? What kind of pedestrian and accessibility improvements would be needed in that corridor? So we finished our concept plan, and now as we continue to work through that process and put ourselves in a position to eventually be able to apply for federal funding to take that project further, we need to perform one of these benefit cost analysis. So with this RFP, we'll look at a consultant to come in and help us. And in short, they'll do some cost estimates for us, some ridership estimates, and really help us lay kind of the case out for why it would make sense to, or if it makes sense to federally fund the project. And that'll put us in a position for competitive grants later on.
All right. Any questions?
Just a comment, Chairman, Mr. Chairman. We had a presentation earlier this week. I got to attend the one Monday or Tuesday evening that talked about this particular issue as a proposal for bus rapid transit along Classen up to Northwest Highway. And after that presentation, seen examples of how this has impacted cities that have adopted this. I'm extremely excited about the potential here. I think this is great. And even though that corridor, Classen and the Northwest Expressway, is already highly developed, I suspect we'll see a modification into the type of development, especially along Classen Boulevard, to which doesn't have much in the way of retail development. I would suspect we'll see changes in the total development along this route, should it occur. And then also, in addition to commercial development, housing development, as they explained to us the other night, especially looking at more affordable housing, multi-family type housing along this area. I always thought that it would require fixed rail type of transit to attract development, but that's not the case in other cities. So I think there's a lot of potential here. And then once this, assuming we approve this and we implement it, I think by far this is the most developed area, the one that really needs this the most. But then we can begin looking at other areas connecting Edmond and Norman, Midwest City, out and then out west with other routes too. So I think this is a great step forward.
Okay. Thank you, David. And, our modern streetcar is going to develop the same way. I mean, it's permanent and things are going to develop. And I don't know if we'll be around to see all the development around the Central Park at some time in the future, but, it's going to be a dynamic part of Oklahoma City when that Central Park and the convention center and all that is finished. So hopefully we're here to provide the transportation for that. All right.
We'll have to take our vitamins.
Well, some of us are much younger, so we'll be here.
Okay, all right. There a motion to approve item B?
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item C is approval of the Train the Trainer program. So, I thought that's what Rick was here for, but I guess.
Yeah, the training continues.
The training continues.
Just quickly, the development of this program is really a solution to what I think we would consider to be a good problem to have, and that is we have we've seen an increase in demand in requests for our how to ride classes. As you're aware, the marketing staff and customer service staff spend a lot of time out in the community working with different organizations, whether it be schools, nonprofits, different groups, when there are people that are interested in learning how to use transit. And so We go so far as to provide even field trips on buses so that whatever those class participants need to learn about transit, we can provide that training. But again, we've been seeing an increase in demand, so what we've done is developed a program that will allow us to actually certify volunteers within some of these organizations we work with to also be able to provide these how to ride classes and work with groups on training about how to use transit. And so in return, the trainer will be certified by Embark. They'll be certified each year. In turn, that trainer will receive a free transit pass for a year. They'll have to renew that and be certified each year. But the other portion of that is those trainers will volunteer to be on call. So even if we need to ask for their assistance and training, maybe somebody outside, their normal group, they can do that. So I think it's a good solution to a problem we have with demand for those services, and appreciate the marketing and customer service staff developing the program.
Okay, thank you. All right, do I hear a motion to approve item C? So moved. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item D is a resolution adopting Cotpa's board initiatives, and I would say that the job the staff has done, and Jason, in putting this presentation or putting this on paper, I think is a wonderful job, and it almost becomes a great part of our long-range plan and for the next 5 years. So I would ask all the trustees and everybody to take that out of their binder and put it with their Cotpa information at the office, so that we can relive this and look at it in the future to see what initiatives the board has kind of written a plan for Cotpa for the next 5 years. So, Jason, if you'd like to make any comments on it.
Sure. Would like to share some information and appreciate those comments. And it has been, a process we've been working on, several of us on staff been working on it over the last year, taking some of that information that was gathered during our strategic planning workshop, basically back in August of 15, where the Board of Trustees met. It was a facilitated process. We looked at our history, kind of some of the successes, some of the challenges, lots of discussion about different priorities and initiatives that were important to the trustees over the next 5 years. And from that meeting, of course, we came up with what we're calling six board initiatives. And those are outlined in that document. And from those 6 board initiatives, we ended up developing progress indicators. The reason we did that, of course, is it's easy enough to identify what's important and where we want to go, but if we don't have some type of progress indicator to help us measure or kind of keep score along the way, obviously it's more difficult to determine if we're really succeeding in meeting those initiatives. So what we spent some time on in the document you have before you really kind of highlights those initiatives that were developed by the board, and then the progress indicators that staff will report on regularly in order for the trustees to get a sense of the progress we're making in those areas. The other nice thing about having these board initiatives adopted by the Board of Trustees is that at the staff level, we also develop a strategic business plan. We work on that strategic business plan, updated at a minimum every other year. And so to be able to have these kind of overarching guiding initiatives, that really helps staff as we develop our own more operational plans, make sure we're aligned to what the long-term goals of the board is. So I have a few slides that I wanted to run through, again, to report out primarily on some of the progress indicators that we've matched up with the initiatives. So if you go to that first slide, Chip. So the first initiative that the board determined was to create a regional transit authority. Some of the progress indicators, we have 2. One is Cotpa will transition to a regional transit model. You can see a subset there of different progress indicators under that. And the other progress indicator is to provide key contributions to the further development of an RTA, including working with ACOG and other transit providers to develop that regional transit vision. We have already started some of those meetings. We've had some discussions on that regional vision. The next initiative here is to identify and promote new multimodal transit options and choices. So some of the progress indicators that will help us gauge our success in that area include launching the new streetcar system, updating or developing a new long-range transportation plan, which of course will incorporate a lot of these priorities, incorporate transit corridors outlined in the 2030 fixed guideway plan, incorporate some of that into the regional transit vision, and the Northwest multimodal corridor that we've spoke about falls right into that. Develop new bus routes and transit services that strengthen the overall network. And again, we're very confident with our plan moving forward. Again, it goes back to our transit system analysis that was performed by Nelson Nygaard. That really is our plan or our playbook for moving forward. We know that, for example, in that plan, there's things we can do to our system in terms of expansion, high-frequency corridors, and so forth. And then pursue enhanced bus service and bus rapid transit options as outlined in the corridor concept plan. So the next initiative we have is to start up and operate a modern streetcar. So some of our progress indicators there. Obviously, we want to meet our operation timelines. We feel like we're doing that. You heard from Doug on kind of some of the steps we're taking with regards to safety compliance. We also are in the process of advertising and selecting a operations contractor, so we're in good shape on our operation timelines. Obviously, we're going to measure our streetcar ridership. We want to measure the satisfaction ratings for streetcar service. We also want to examine alternative funding options for operations. So that could be sponsorships, naming rights, advertising. And then we want to implement a lot of educational and promotional campaigns. And you heard from Kristen this morning about, the need for those kinds of just awareness messaging to again, educate our community about what streetcar is all about, not only how to ride the streetcar, but how to operate an automobile around the streetcar. So that's another reason why it was so important to get our brand out so early so that we have plenty of time to communicate those things. The next initiative here is to enhance and promote existing transit services and amenities. So our progress indicators here, we're going to continue to measure ridership at all modes. We're going to continue to gather satisfaction ratings through all modes. We want to continue to improve the average frequency of the bus routes. We want to expand the Spokie's bike share network, and then implement transit education and promotional campaigns. Next initiative, secure dedicated funding sources for transit in central Oklahoma. So one of the progress indicators is, of course, to secure that dedicated funding, but also to have consideration of public transit projects and GO bond initiatives. Same time, we want to be able to maintain costs. So one of our progress indicators is our ability to maintain a per passenger cost that's comparable to peers. And we're going to, of course, continue to pursue new grant opportunities, and the benefit cost analysis that we're doing puts us in a position to do just that. So then I believe this might be the final initiative is to expand and enhance the downtown parking system. Progress indicators there, staff will do periodic parking studies to make sure we can respond to the changing market. It's imperative that we keep parking operations financially self-sustaining. We want to incorporate new parking technologies, and as an example, the trustees approving the purchase of the handheld ticketing machines for event parking is an area that we've started making some progress in, and then maintain existing garages in a state of good repair. So there's a lot of information pretty quickly, but wanted to give you a sense of not only the initiative, but how we plan to measure and gauge how we're responding to those initiatives.
Yeah. I can remember back in 2012 when we were talking about replacing a board member, and I thought it would be nice to have a member of the city council on our trust, and the mayor was kind enough to appoint David. And one of the privileges of being chairman maybe is to kind of assign responsibilities on the trust. So I'll take care of 4 of these, but I'd asked David to chair the secured and dedicated funding, so. So.
Well, I'll try.
But I thought that would be very appropriate to city council. So. All right. Any questions? But I think this is really a very beneficial thing for everybody to have, not just the staff and the board, but for the public to know kind of what our initiatives and what our plans are in the coming years. So, again, congratulate the staff for putting together this board initiative. So, any other questions? I'd hear a motion to approve item D.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I've only been on the board for the past year, but I had the privilege and honor of being able to serve during the creation of this plan. And I'm so excited by it because, as Rick was saying earlier, it's about telling a story. And our story, when I was getting my hair cut a few weeks ago and talking to the owner of this shop on 23rd Street, and I asked him, I was like, what's the one thing, now that I'm on this board, what's the one thing that you would tell me that we need to work on in terms of transportation? And he said, James, look right outside my shop. There's a bus stop, and it's not covered. And he has people who come there to his shop for years. It's a very popular shop. And he just wants that sort of improvement on bus service. So it really warms my heart when I look at our plan and I see that we're improving our bus service, that we're looking at bus rapid transit, that we're looking at improving already the streetcar that's not even in the ground yet. Our story, I think, is how we're going to connect people from bus to streetcar to bus rapid transit to bike to walking on sidewalks. And I'm just so excited about this, and I couldn't let this moment pass without saying thank you all on the board for your work, and thank you to all the voters who have seen and shared our vision. So thank you so much for this opportunity, too.
Well, you can be a great comrade to David in dedicated funding. So.
Speaking of which, David, I'd be lost. I'd be remiss if I didn't say this, but Yoda says there is no try, there is only do. So I'm really looking forward to seeing your Star Wars nerd coming out here.
All right, thank you.
You've not received the blunt end of pushback, though, James.
All right. Do I hear? Well, I think I'd ask, but do I have a motion to approve item D?
Move the item. Second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Thank you. Our next item is ratification of claims and payroll. If there is nothing in that report that the trustees have a question on, then I have a motion to ratify.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Next item are our financial reports. Of course, we're only 1 month into the fiscal year, so there's not a lot on there. I don't know, Jason, if you have any comment on any item. I think you had one.
Excuse me. Yeah, just a couple of things. On the transit operations on page 2, I just wanted to point out that the federal grant revenue, you'll notice we have not drawn any funds, but again, our budgeted amount was 0 as well. And the reason for that is, as I've described in the past, it's a reimbursement grant, so as we incur expenses in July, we'll be reimbursed for them in August, and that's when you'll start seeing that federal grant reimbursement revenue come in and be tracked on the fiscal year 17 financials. Other than that, again, it's 1 month, so anything you see on here in terms of a comparison of budget to actual, it's really way too early to say that's any kind of a trend. The only other thing I would point out on the transit system report in particular is the personal services down under the operating expenditures. We're actually showing to be at about 61% of the budget. Part of that is the fact that we only have about 1.5 payrolls reflected in this report, whereas typically, we have 2 full payrolls every month. So we're going to be working with the accounting department to just understand that and see if that's just going to be put on the next month or if it needs to be restated. So just a minor thing there. On the parking system report, again, revenues are close to target. We're at 94% of what we would expect. On operating expenditures, again, looking at parking garage operations, you'll notice that essentially we have zero budget to date. We have not incurred any we have not paid any expenses because we'll receive that monthly invoice from Republic for July, and that'll be paid in August. So looking at river cruisers, again, the total operating revenue is pretty much right on target. Expenditures are coming in under target. That's primarily because we had the ferry contract operations. Our estimate was significantly higher than what the costs actually were. We expect that to catch up and be closer to budget at our August financial. And then on our Spokies operations, the only thing I would point out there is you'll notice the payment we received from the general fund to support the bike share. We've actually went ahead and drawn all of that revenue here at the first of the year. So although you see operating income currently about $127,000, as we move through the year and we start using that support from the general fund, that'll begin to drop. So that's just a quick summary of the financials. You also have the pension report. I won't make any comments specific other than just point you to page 1. That's the management discussion and analysis. That's where you'll find the change in net position compared to last year and our funded ratio.
All right. Any questions? Then I'd have a motion to approve, I guess, item A and B of our financial reports. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Our program reports. First is our transit system report. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, trustees. Thanks for having us. I'd like to touch on 4 topics from the July 2016 transit report and provide a quick, just a quick update to the modern streetcar. Doug does such a good job. The 4 things I'd like to discuss in the transit report are safety, on-time, or ridership, on-time performance, and how we measure up to our benchmarks. We were responsible for 1 preventable accident during the month of July 2016, which is 3 fewer than the previous month, and the total damage amounted to a little bit less than $1,100. Our 3-month rolling average for preventable accidents has been reduced now to 3.7. We hope to keep that reduction going. We experienced 7 non-preventable accidents during the month of July. Take a look at the presentation slide. I appreciate it. You'll see that we we provided 11,027 trips, which is 3.3% below the 11,400 from last July. And also, I'd like to point out an oddity about the month. This July had 20 weekdays as opposed to 23 from the previous July, and we had 5 Saturdays in one little month. And as we all know, we do more than twice as many passenger trips during the weekdays as we do on Saturdays. So the scary statistic that the ridership for Monday through Saturday on the fixed route was 244,907 compared to 276,646, which is an 11.5% reduction. If it's adjusted statistically to account for that anomaly of 5 Saturdays and 3 fewer weekdays, it translates into more than 18,000 passenger trips, so that our true reduction is only 4.8%. And of course, we're working on that. New night service. You'll see that we continue to grow. We went from 365 to the right up to 382, which is a 4.7% increase, and we're just chugging right along on that. Our on-time performance was 67.61%, which is in less than 1% from the previous month, decrease from the previous month and from the previous January or July, and we're working on those things. Our report card, in terms of our number of passengers per service hour, we're at 89% of our goal, and once again, that is tremendously influenced by the 5 Saturdays with the less than half ridership. The number of passengers per operating day were at 96% of the goal. Our on-time bus arrivals were at 90% of the goal. Number of miles between road calls, we're at 102% of the goal. Number of vehicle accidents per 100,000 miles, we're at 156%. But please recall that 7 of the 8 accidents we've had in this fiscal year were non-preventable. The number of passenger claims per 100,000 miles is 63% of goal. I'd like to touch on something that happened night before last at 9:34 in the evening when it was dark. Our downtown discovery operator saw a couple walking towards Bricktown in the dark with their infant, pulled up, opened the door. So where are you guys going? We're a free bus. Can I help you? They got on the bus. They said, we're going to the Greyhound station. Of course, we go to Bricktown, the end of Bricktown, and it's 1.25 miles to the Greyhound station. Our operator said, hey, can I call a taxi for you? That's a rough 1.25 miles. The guy said, well, we don't have any money, but we got to go to Tulsa. Our operator then saw a police officer towards the end of the route, pulled over, said to the police officer, hey, can you help these guys out? Without hesitation, the police officer got out of the car, grabbed the infant, the trio got in the police car, and he took them to the bus station, which is just continuing. We see these things all the time, but city departments joining together to serve our citizens. That little kid's going to grow up, and these guys are going to be talking about that, but that kid has a very favorable image not only of Oklahoma City, but of police officers, which is extremely valuable. Okay? Can I answer any questions about the transit report?
Any questions? No? All right.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, just a quick thing on the modern streetcar update. I'm going to expand on, Doug was with us with MAPS, and we met with ODOT for half a day, and then we went on a little tour of our facility where we introduced all 3 of the ODOT people to at least 50 of our employees. We jumped on the new bus that you guys gave us, met with the fellow that is preparing it to be in service, and went through the maintenance operation and our regular operation. And each one of those people said to me, at the end of it, they said, wow, you and MAPS and Jacobs are all in step and very concerned with, or, obviously very concerned with safety and a clean operation. They said they were extremely impressed, each one of them, which is just wonderful. And they were really good people, too. But to set the road for this partnership of all of us learning how to do a streetcar. The other thing I want to mention is that 2 nights ago was the end of our RFP process for the operation and maintenance of the streetcar, and we attracted the people that we wanted to, so my hat's off to everybody. The last thing, we got our 4 buses, and I got to tell you, you've greatly enhanced the quality of my sleep process. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask Jason a question? With respect to that story, could we look at the possibility of extending the Discovery bus out to the Greyhound system? Maybe not each time it, circles the downtown, but maybe once an hour, once every 2 hours, have just one extended ride, because it is relatively close, and it would certainly serve a service to those who are trying to get from downtown out there to the Greyhound system. So if you would ask your staff just to look at that idea possibly.
We'll do so.
I don't know how we would advertise it if that was the decision, but somehow those things, the word gets out, even if we did it on a limited basis, 3 or 4 times a day or something. Thank you.
All right, David, thank you. All right, long-range plan and our 5-year initiative. You've got a new report to be given now.
Well, I've got a positive report for you. Yes, I do. Some items that have happened in this past month are these TOD workshops. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on that in a moment. But staff attended the RTA task force meeting at ACOG this month, and we've continued planning for inside of Oklahoma City a lot of our major capital needs that we know are coming up in the next 5 years. And there's also a good meeting with FTA about the different MAPS projects and how they relate to transit. And as Kevin already mentioned, we received the first part of those 6 CNG buses, and this is a great step towards that transition away from the diesel buses towards CNG and hybrids. But what I really want to kind of mention is a little bit about the TOD workshops that we held. As you recall, Smart Growth America awarded Oklahoma City a grant for looking at transit-oriented development, and we had some great presenters from Smart Growth America here this week. They did 3 different types of workshops, very different purposes. Because, you know, it's one thing to kind of build a system, have the vehicles and the stops, et cetera, but it's very important to think about how you build that community around those stops. And that's really what these workshops were about. And so we worked closely with OKC Planning over the course of this summer in terms of trying to plan and get ready for the logistics on this. And we've also worked with a number of other groups too. So, you know, as you might remember, this is basically that Northwest Multimodal Corridor. It starts at the Santa Fe Station, goes out Classen, out the Northwest Expressway. In the 2030 plan, you know, this kind of a corridor goes all the way till Kilpatrick Turnpike. But, you know, for the purposes of the kind of limited planning we're trying to do, just trying to get to Meridian is a pretty good chunk to look at. And the dots that you see on the map are not all the stops that might potentially someday be some type of transit stop. They're just good illustrative locations. Probably need to be twice that many. But, you know, you can look at TOD as a corridor. You can look at it as a type of land use. And this is just kind of one example that you've seen before, and that's the multi-story building that perhaps is retail or office or services on the bottom level, housing upstairs. A little bit higher density, but nothing that is really any taller than a lot of buildings you already see along Classen Boulevard today. And I think you even see the transit stop there in kind of the middle part of it. You know, the second workshop that we had was one that Ms. Johnson had a chance to go to, and we had about 40 different developers and investors and leaders who met over at the Hall of Mirrors over at the Civic Center Music Hall. And our presenters did a good job of presenting the basic case, the business case really, for transit-oriented development, and they did something like that for bus rapid transit too. And they were good to remind us that streetcar, it's important to be very intentional about TOD along streetcar. We've seen a lot of development along the route, but by being even more intentional, you may even get a better community and probably an even better ridership. They mentioned a lot of ideas that are worth reporting at another time, but they also have had some comments about TOD. And as you probably noticed when Doug Smith was showing that flyover, so many parking lots along the streetcar route, many of which make good prospects for some type of additional development. On just another slide of some of the other folks that were at that meeting. Well, we changed, kind of switched gears, and that night had a meeting for the general public out at 50 Penn Place. And we had probably 50 people who came, and they received sort of a shorter presentation, but they were also given the opportunity to gather around tables, kind of like you see these folks, 5 or 6 tables, once they kind of heard some ideas. And they basically provided input on what they thought would be good strategies for TOD. And Councilman Greenwell had a chance to come to that meeting. We had great support from groups like the Alliance for Public Transportation, who put out the word and provided refreshments, and a lot of other groups as well. And so, you know, these groups would kind of look at things and they would draw around the maps, and then they came back and they reported. And I think this is a location out by Integris. The other one was like at 23rd and Classen. And so, you know, when you get people thinking about the future of the community, about the capital improvements, about the community around those stops and stations, then really that's a key part of long-range planning. So if you have any questions, be glad to answer them. But been another good week for Embark.
All right. Thank you.
Larry, just for example, that circle that has been drawn in there, does that demonstrate like the walking distance within, say, 5 to 10 minutes to the particular proposed site?
Sure. A quarter-mile walk is about 5 minutes. This looks to be the quarter-mile circle. Each of those maps already had that pre-drawn circle.
Uh-huh. It was interesting to listen, and I hope you can perhaps share some of the slides that they presented to all members of the board with the possible impact on development that this bus rapid transit would create. It was very interesting in a variety of development type areas, housing, retail, commercial. So thank you.
I think that they had talked about both how important that half-mile distance is in terms of the walking distance, but that when it really comes down to the nib of it, it's the quarter-mile distance that's so important for that development prospect, and the density, the affordable housing, the commercial development, all in that quarter-mile area. And you can see how relatively small that is, but how many opportunities it offers you in that small area.
Right. And I loved that night when they showed just a few examples of different types of a more dense housing development. Because, here in Oklahoma City, some people can be very nervous when you talk about multifamily housing or apartment complexes coming into their neighborhood. But that's not the only type of means to increase the density. And they had some great examples coming out of Austin, I think, or other cities. And Cleveland's a great success story of its bus rapid transit system. So it'll be great to hear future developments along this line. Thank you.
We'll be glad to put together a presentation of some of that information that was shared at those meetings, and probably take an opportunity to partner with planning. The planning department was a huge help on this project as well. And
it would be helpful too, not for this, just for this board, but eventually to the city council as a whole. I think they would enjoy it too. Thank you.
I was at the event with some of the people from the planning department, and I will tell you that we have an opportunity coming up to begin the process of revising our city ordinances, the codes, the building codes, not the building construction codes, but the zoning ordinances. The planning department is in the process of selecting a consultant who will help us do that. It'll help us craft zoning codes that mirror our new plan, the comprehensive plan that was adopted. And we do have an opportunity to talk in those new codes about creating density requirements and incentives in areas to do just this. So it was good that the planning department was working with you on this type of thing, but I know that from my own experience with them that they talk about this sort of density development all the time.
The planning department actually got to have sort of a special staff-to-staff, like 6-on-2 type of a meeting. And we had a very rich discussion on Monday, received a lot of material, and I think that that was a good kind of a kickoff of this discussion of how you write TOD into the zoning codes.
All right. I know several years ago I attended a meeting where the planning department was doing a long-range, I don't remember the details of it, but a long-range plan for the development of Oklahoma City. And is it?
It's the comp plan that I was referring to that was just adopted by the council probably in the last year. So, and now is the hard work of making sure that our zoning ordinances are updated to mirror the objectives that were established in that plan.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Larry, thank you. Parking system report. Now, I must make a comment here, since Laura has reminded some of us are a little older on the trust, that change is hard, and you've changed my report here, so you changed the format. So,
I did, and
yes,
to
okay.
provide more information. The monthly report that you're accustomed to will be sent out later this morning to all of you. Our monthly parking has declined a bit more. Right now we're at 95%. A lot of that has to do with Sheridan Walker, which is currently at 80%. We corrected some billing as it relates to employees parking in the facility. To welcome all feedback on the revised report that was forwarded in your packets. Wanted to include some additional information as it relates to transient parking, event parking, and lease space. It is a report that's in progress, and look for that feedback. Would you have me delete or add anything?
Well, let us get used to it. we'll see.
Okay.
I did like the, knowing what the levels were at each of the garages. That's useful to me. It may not be to the rest of the trustees, and so maybe it's unnecessary to include in this format. I don't know what kind of feedback we'll have from the others, but that's useful to me.
We'll add that back in.
Yeah, I mean, you could almost still use the old report and put it behind this, and then update it with the event parking and transient parking, which is, is good information in the retail space. And I think Jason told me prior that you're trying to format something on the rental space for how many square feet we have and what is rented and what is not rented, which I think would be very helpful too, to know what's available and who the tenants are and everything. So.
Great. Will do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Marketing.
I just wanted to point out a few key events that are coming up and that we'll be promoting and hope that we'll see you at as well. The next Free Fair Friday is September 16th. And then we have an annual health fair each year, and that is scheduled now for October 12th. It's from 7 to 1 at the Transit Center. And we'll be sending out announcements, and we have more partners participating all the time and signing up. And then we also have the next Open Streets that is on the south side this year, again, in the fall, and that is set for October 23rd. It's a Sunday as well, and we hope to be there as well and hope you can make it as well. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
This incident with the night driver and the police taking these people, I mean, those are interesting stories that somehow we need to share with the public, that how all the city departments work together. And so, an incident like that would make a good thing to share, and see if some of the newscasters would pick it up, because I remember the story of the attorneys in town, or I don't remember all the details, where the driver picked them and took them, and they just were so complimentary of Oklahoma City for that. So,
all right, definitely looking at it.
All right. Any questions? Thank you. The river.
Yes, boats and bikes.
Excuse me, that's right. I've got to remember that now.
Ridership on Oklahoma River cruises remains higher than in previous years. We have a 38% increase over 2015 for the first 7 months of the season. Riders per service hour is at the highest it's been since the service began in 2008. We're at almost 16 riders per service hour, which is tremendous. Since a boat travels, a trip is about 45 minutes, this means we have much more than 16 riders on each trip, which is very exciting for us.
What do you attribute this to? Have you tried to analyze that?
Well, HMS took it upon themselves, and we're very happy about this, to create a social media program. They've been pushing on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and it's grown the number of, I just tracked the Facebook portion from 4,000 likes in January to almost 5,500 this month since they started this program. And it starts the buzz, it starts the sharing. Not only that, but it hits the demographic that generates the most revenue for us. So we're very, very pleased with the results of that campaign that they've started. And it is very closely monitored by our marketing department to make sure it puts the correct face on transit for us. But,
have you tracked from the Brookdown Canal down to the boats and back? I mean, do you track that to know kind of what's going on there?
We do look at how many passengers get on from Brooktown. As far as knowing how many got off of the canal boats, we don't track that. We do know how many go from our boats onto the canal because they purchase those wristbands from us. So and I don't see a lot of activity with that, but we're getting so many riders now that they can come in from wherever they want. We're just happy to have them. And we're getting more traffic from Meridian. And once the newest hotel, which is right next to our landing, opens up, HMS is already in conversation with the owners of that hotel to do some sort of a cooperative agreement to help grab more transit passengers from that area. We do get some already, but we'd love to see a big increase from that corridor. Let's talk about Spokies. The second week of August, all the new Spokies equipment was installed. People immediately started riding. Our ridership in July, before we even had the new system, was the highest it's been since Spokies began, and we think it's just the buzz and the information about the new system coming drew some more people to bike share. All of the annual and monthly membership holders of the old system were transferred over to the new system. We extended their passes for a year so that they can begin to enjoy the system and get the word out about how it is. Josh, our general manager of Spokies, has spoken to a few of those folks who've ridden our system. Nice thing about this new system is we have a phone number for everyone who rides, so we can make contact with these people and find out how they feel about it. And all of them are just very pleased with the new equipment, how easy it is to use, and how much better the bicycles are. The new bikes were also introduced to over 200 cyclists at the Full Moon Bike Ride at the Mary Botanical Gardens on August 28th. I tell you, I felt like a car salesman standing in front of this bank of 20 bikes and riders coming up and asking me about the features of the bikes and explaining to them the internal hubs and the GPS and all this sort of thing. And they were all just astounded at the level of technology on these new bikes and what we're able to do. And I did get a peek at some of the reports that are coming, some of the information that we can gather, some of the data, and it's really quite remarkable. It actually calculates the carbon offset for people using bikes rather than getting in their cars. It estimates how many calories were burned, tells you estimated how many miles were traveled, not just zigzag miles, but straight line miles. Lots of really interesting information that I'm looking forward to putting together and sharing with the board in future meetings. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Wanted to say thanks to Josh for all his work on making sure we were ready to go for that launch. I know there was a lot of last-minute things that you and he both did. So.
And Josh and his wife as well, who came in and helped.
Okay, I haven't met his wife. So
and he would have brought in his kids, but they're too small.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of people worked very hard, and Josh in particular, coordinating everything so that 48 bikes are out on the street, whereas previously we had 20, 25. Now he maintains 48 bikes on the street and got the system up and running and very smoothly, and just a lot of work he put in.
Jeannie did a good job getting 20 people onto the 20 bikes you brought to the kickoff event. There weren't any Spokies bikes left.
No, all of them were borrowed out for that event. It was really.
I heard you rode a block or two without hurting yourself.
Yes, I made it 2 blocks.
2 blocks, all right.
The first station and checked it in, but I just needed a little test drive.
Oh, okay.
Test ride.
But he'd ridden the demo bike, the year before, so okay.
Jeannie, this morning, because I'm the cliche millennial, I was looking at Instagram right after I woke up, and there it was, people in Denver on their bike share, and they were taking photos of this, and I was like, oh, this is wonderful, and it reminded me that just a couple weeks ago, I was driving through Bricktown on like a Saturday, which I never do, because there's a lot of people in Bricktown on the weekends, as it turns out. And there people were on our bike share, just, Lord knows where they were going, but the only reason why I make this comment right now is I really don't want anyone to underestimate what we're seeing here in terms of this increased ridership and this increased interest in being able to ride bikes around our city. And so thank you for what you all are doing, and Josh and his wife and those kids, whoever they are, too. Thank them as well.
All right, Jeannie, thank you. All right, would need a motion to receive all our program reports.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Items from the trustees. We've all expressed a lot of our thoughts today, and if there's anything else you have, I know Jason has one more item on our triennial in just a moment of speaking about that, which I think all the trustees got the report.
So, yeah, I appreciate the patience this morning. I know our meeting went a little long, but I think we had hopefully a very informative meeting. But last piece of information I wanted to provide is we did get our final report back from the FTA regarding the triennial review that they performed back when they were on site in June. And as you'll recall, the triennial review is, essentially an audit process that the FTA does with transit agencies every 3 years. The review looks at all areas of transit agency operations, 17 different areas, but anything from, maintenance, Title VI, drug and alcohol testing, even to financial management and technical capacity. So it's it's a comprehensive review. So the reviewer was complimentary of the staff. I feel like we did a really good job responding not only to the desk audit, but also the on-site review. There were 4 areas that the reviewer pointed out where we needed improvement. Of those, there's actually 3 areas, 4 issues. Of those 4 issues, we've all but addressed all but 1. So I'll go through those real quickly as an information item for the trustees. The first item that they mentioned to us was a limit or capacity constraints on ADA, and this really has to do with our paratransit operations. Although overall we're meeting the goals of the ADA program, in fact our denial rate for those complimentary required trips was less than 2%. In fact, we're able to actually fulfill 99.2% of our trips in FY16. But the question that the reviewer had was, well, are there capacity constraints where people are having difficulty getting through on the phone line? So they looked at our reports, and they really wanted to see some more information on our reports and make sure we were monitoring things like hold time, like busy signals, call abandonment. So we have since responded and have that issue closed out. We've revamped our reports. We've developed procedures where we've stated how often we're going to review those reports. We've identified a call abandonment goal. We actually put it at 10%. We've already improved it from 13% down to 10%. So we're making some progress there. So we feel like that issue is essentially addressed. All we now need to do is continue to follow our procedures and work on those numbers. The other items were in the areas of procurement. The reviewer found a deficiency on a pre-award and post-delivery Buy America certification for our recent bus purchase. So the buses that we purchased with FTA funds have to have at this time, or at the time of the procurement, was a 60% domestic product content. And so there's a process of making sure before you select a manufacturer that they have the documentation to show that 60% content, and then a post-delivery, even after it's delivered, you have to verify that that domestic content is in fact included in those buses. And as you'll recall, we actually purchased our buses off of an existing contract that DART had. And so we relied on a lot of that information that they had already done that, kind of that homework, and our reviewer suggested that we needed to have that documentation. We needed to do that own documentation and put it in our file. So we've addressed the pre-award. We're simply waiting on some documentation from a vendor for the post-delivery, and then we'll send that on. So that's basically closed out, with the exception of that documentation. The other thing in procurement was a suggestion on improving our responsibility determination deficiency. So what that means is anytime we do a procurement and we are going to do business with a vendor, we have a duty to make sure that it's a reputable company and that they can, in fact, provide the service they're bidding on. We had a process in place where we essentially had any vendor wanting to conduct business with us sign a contract clause indicating that they were not on the government-wide debarment list. And that's fine, but the reviewer suggested we take that a step further. And so now we actually need to look at that list ourselves, document the file that we've looked at it, and then they also suggested we look at other ways to determine the capabilities of vendors, even something as simple as going out to the Better Business Bureau website and just making sure that we're doing business with reputable companies. And then the last issue was unapproved DBE goal on a transit vehicle procurement. And this actually goes back to a procurement we did for paratransit buses, our last order. We are required to set a DBE goal. In other words, we want to do business with what's considered to be disadvantaged businesses, and we have a goal that we try to set. We had actually included a DBE goal on that paratransit van purchase and have since learned that although we did that with the best intentions, we actually need to have that DBE goal approved by the FTA before we do the procurement. So we've corrected that and submitted the change or the update in procedures to the FTA, and that one is closed. But essentially, we will not do a procurement and set a DBE goal without it being approved by our DBE liaison, which is Chip Nolan. So he'll review all those and make sure they're consistent. So other than that, it was a really good review, minor issues that, again, easily addressed. And I think what's most encouraging is we had no findings in our technical capacity, which is basically our grants management. We had no findings in our financial management section. And the reviewer shared this with us in the group. He said, usually I always find something in maintenance and drug and alcohol. It's almost a given. And we had no findings in those two areas. So overall, I think it was a really good review for us.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments from the trustees? If
Just
not,
real quick, I wanted to say, since it's Labor Day, thanks to all of the Embark staff and workers and to our city employees and to everybody else, enjoy your Labor Day weekend. Thank you.
all right. I would say we're adjourned. Thank you.